Hey everybody, welcome back to another video within the AWS Solution Architect series, and in this video we'll be talking about difference between public IP address, private IP address, and what basically is an elastic IP address. So let's talk about it, but before we begin, it's important to know that what kind of IP address landscape does AWS use. So IP address. So we have two sort of IP addresses. We have IPv4, which is something like this: 1.2.3.4. So yeah, pretty similar standard IP addresses that we encounter almost every single day. Then we have IPv6. Let's IPv6, and they look something like this: 3FFE 4600 colon 4200 001, and we have something like F23. So not pretty standard stuff, but this is more specific to IoT devices, and this is more specific to conventional IP addresses. All right, and within this division, we have another class which is known as public IP addresses. Public IP. And what this means is like any IP address that can be accessed through internet or can be recognized through an internet is known as public IP. So accessed through internet. So that's one thing. So that brings us back to private IP. So the similarities between a private network and a public network exist for both of these here as well. So for private IP, again, if you have a resource, and when I say resource, I mean AWS resource. So any resource that can be recognized within a private network. So we have public access over here, and we don't have public access over here. So if you are launching a particular AWS resource, it's highly likely that it would support both public IP address and a private IP address. Private IP address is the actual address, the address where you'll find a particular server rack, and you'll find a server over there, and within the server is your EC2 instance running. A public IP address is more like a dangling mailing address, which you can use for a particular timing, but it's preferable to use public IP address for all kind of communication between your instances. But if you're in a specific network, obviously there are ways through which you can enable your private IP addresses to sort of communicate, have some sort of communication with the internet. But we'll discuss that later. All right, let's talk about elastic IP addresses. Next we have, let's scroll this a bit up. So we have elastic IP address. All right, so if you launch a particular EC2 instance, it will have a public IP address, it will have a private IP address. But the problem is that if that EC2 instance is either stopped or it's terminated, you would lose the public IP address. So which means wherever you have stored that IP address within the environment files of your particular applications, you will have to change that. You will have to update that every single time. For example, if you're using a spot instance and that spot instance sort of changes after every while, and that's going to revise and update your IP address, public IP address every single time. So your applications might just crash if you're using those IP addresses somewhere to sort of communicate between these EC2 instances. So that's where Elastic IP Address come to rescue you, and they're like fixed, and you can attach them with your EC2 instance attached to EC2 instances. And as they basically, as told previously, they mask your public IP address. And with every account that you get 5 Elastic IP addresses only. All right, so yeah, that's the use case for Elastic IP address. Also, we talked about SSH briefly in our previous video. So whenever you're using SSH, please make sure that you use public IP addresses. Private IP addresses cannot be accessed through the internet since they exist in a separate network. And so you have to use public IP addresses for that. So just a little bit of a tip that can be relevant in terms of your examination. And in terms of the number of Elastic IP addresses, please do remember this, as this can be important from the exam perspective as well. So yeah, that's every bit of detail about public IP addresses, private IP, and Elastic IP. I'll see you in the next video. Take care till then.